right now I want to go to my guest, and I got to tell you about this guy. You talk about a resume that goes on and on and on. Dr. Nadir Atash. He's an Afghan-American educator, entrepreneur, author who has lived in the United States for over 30 years. He received his BS in chemistry from the prestigious American University Beirut, his MS in science education from Claremont University in California, his PhD in statistics and educational research from Florida State University. 1982, Dr. Atash accepted a position at the State Department of Education in Columbia, South Carolina. He was also an avid soccer player and coach. Dr. Atash moved his family to Washington, D.C., and he served as a statistician at Westat. That's a major research firm in Rockville, Maryland. In 1990, Dr. Atash launched Quick Lube, an automotive services company, and PARSA, P-A-R-S-A, that was an educational counseling firm, which he continues to manage successfully. He is founding chairman of the board of the Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce. He served as senior advisor to the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Transport in Afghanistan, president of Ariana Airlines. Today, Dr. Atash is chairman and CEO of Emerald View Group. That's an international business counseling and real estate marketing firm. Dr. Atash also continues his quest to bring change in Afghanistan by supporting education and development projects in rural areas of the country. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me in your show, and I'm very excited being part of your show.
Well, thank you, sir. And I got to tell you, the listener, that intro to you, that resume, that bio, that's about 1/3 of what you've done. I really gave them the very, very short version because we have a very short period of time and I want to cover as much as possible. And first off, just want to mention today, 8 American troops killed. The U.S. military says 8 deaths occurred today. The latest deaths were 55. The total number of American troops killed in October in Afghanistan. 14 died yesterday. Also, Matthew Ho, H-O-H, senior U.S. civilian in Afghanistan, Zubal Providence, resigned in protest because he believes the American effort there is simply fueling the insurgency. And in your book, Doctor, you mentioned that basically there's 3 stages in Afghanistan. And before we get to those stages, tell the listener, when was the first time you were there and when was the last time you were there?
Well, I was born in Afghanistan and I raised and educated in Afghanistan. And I was born in 1947. And
47.
Yes. And I came to this country as an exchange student in 1963 when I was 16. Lived with an American family for about a year and then went back to Afghanistan and completed my high school, and then I got a scholarship to AUB, and then I went back to Afghanistan and served for 7 years in educational, especially for science improvement in the Ministry of Education. Also, I taught at the University of Kabul chemistry courses. So that was my prior to my coming to the U.S. In fact, I came to LA area in 1972 to 73 and got my master's degree from Claremont Graduate School.
Yeah.
And at that time, I think the show George Putnam, the late George Putnam, was living, and I was a great fan of his on TV, Channel 5. I remember all this.
Also, I believe you're good friends with Arnold de Borgrave, right?
Yes, we are good friends. They are very good people. They have covered news all over the world, including Afghanistan. So.
Well, Doctor, because we have very little time here, I want to talk about the book. This is the latest book by Dr. Atash. It's called Turbulence, and you'll see because it ties in with the airline company that he was president of and ran. But let's talk about these stages, shall we? You describe that there's 3 distinctive stages of progress in Afghanistan. You have between 1950 and 78 oppression, between 1978 and 2001, that's the oppression, I'm sorry. Progress, 1950 to 1978. Oppression, 1978 to 2001. And turbulence between 2001 and 2009. And I guess the Soviet takeover in 1978 was the beginning of one of the periods, right?
Yes. In fact, my recent experiences in Afghanistan, which was mostly charity, human development, and a little work with the government of Afghanistan, kind of caused me afterwards to see why are we going in a spiraling downward process. You know, especially the international community and the U.S. in particular is shedding its blood and spending its treasure, but yet we are not achieving the goals that we were intending to achieve, which means good for the Afghan people also. So I said to write this book, but I wanted to put it in perspective, historic perspective. And there are a lot of misconceptions about Afghanistan, especially in the media, in the U.S. and in international media. A lot of people portray Afghanistan that there was no state before that, which is totally wrong, that there was no system, which is totally wrong. So I started, giving my life story as I had witnessed it, in parallel to the airline, which I subsequently became the president for about a year. And I saw a lot of parallelism in terms of development, progress in the years prior to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And the country was moving forward in terms of democracy, in terms of its institutions, in terms of education, in terms of economics, even though Afghanistan was a poor country, but yet it was making strides, mostly on its own resources and also with some assistance from both the U.S. and the Soviet Union at that time. However, in 1978, when the communists took over with direct intervention from the Soviet Union, and then subsequently in 1980, actually 1979, when the Soviets invaded in December 79, at that period, then this the oppression, the period that people were imprisoned, about 1 million Afghans lost their lives, so many educated Afghans had to flee the country. The institutions were basically ruined and destroyed. So this period of oppression then continued till the Taliban, till 2001. And our lives individually and also collectively were basically disturbed and ruined by this period. But after the fall of Taliban in 2001, we were very hopeful that the situation will change given the U.S. interest, given the international community's involvement, and so much resources spent in Afghanistan. And initially, we made some strides, and up to 2004, 2005, things were improving, maybe not at the pace that some of us wanted, but at least it was improvement. But
you were saying, Doctor, I hate to interrupt you here, but going back to 9/11, you were saying that there were very high hopes because the U.S. forces had come in after 9/11. And basically, you mentioned the airline, and you said that the more positive steps that you made toward transparency and clean business in that airline when you were running it, the more trouble seemed to come your way because all of a sudden you were accused of embezzlement and fraud. And you're saying that there is so much corruption going on there, even right now, right?
Yes. In fact, I took over the airline in 2005, and right after the country was going towards a downward spiral. In 2001, when the U.S. intervened in Afghanistan, the majority, and I'm talking about vast majority, like 90% of population or even more, were supportive of the U.S. intervention because they had seen so much misery and so much atrocities committed against the people by some whatever unsavory characters or dudes, whatever you call them, including the Taliban, communists, and so forth.